Welcome to Sexually Charged Radio on 93.3 FM in Guelph, CFRU.ca online. I am Ruthie, your host, and I am on the road doing episodes with new people. This is not the end of Thomas and I. We've just decided that we can open our circles a little bit more with radio hosting, and so some of them will be one of the two of us with other people, and you're probably not worried about that at all. I am here co-hosting today with...
Sarah.
Hi, Sarah. Nice to meet you.
Again,
nice to share a couch and blankets with you. So, what are your pronouns?
She.
Excellent. Mine are they. Thank you. And you declined to introduce yourself in other episodes, so I will not ask if you want to introduce yourself this time, but I will ask if that's still accurate.
That's still accurate.
Okay, good. If you were, what's your favorite alcoholic drink?
Oh, my favorite alcoholic drink changes. At the moment,
I had a sip. That was good.
It is not your mom's apple pie, which tastes like I'm just drinking down my mother's apple pie.
Apple pie in a beer bottle.
I'm going to take a little sip right now.
Good work. Good work. What is my favorite alcoholic drink? I've been into hard apple cider lately. I do like a well-prepared amaretto sour. I like cranberry sours too. Apparently, I'm a person of a previous generation as soon as I get to alcohol. So, that may or may not be related to today's topic. Sarah, I was wondering if I could interview you about your experiences as a person who regularly has casual sex with people that you know very little or not at all.
Sure.
And thank you. And this casual sex is at least some of the time with cis men who probably identify as straight or maybe bisexual, but they're not telling you, or maybe they are telling you. But at least for the purposes of your hookup, it's a cis woman, cis male pairing.
It is, and I would say if we're talking a more casual, it's probably more cis men than cis women.
Gotcha. And that's exactly what I want to interview you about. So that is perfect. So research and theory suggests that women who have casual sex with men have less pleasurable sex with these men than they do with people who know them longer or better or within the context of a long-term relationship. What do you think about that?
I think for a lot of people that's probably accurate. I'm fortunate in that it's not accurate for me, or I won't let it be accurate for me. I'm not sure which is the more accurate descriptor of that. But when I have casual sex with, I'm going to just speak for cis men now, because I would say that probably 90% of my casual sex, if not more, is with cis men. It's still about me, so that's a very important part.
Would you consider yourself a domineering or dominant person sexually, or just kind of flexible or switchy or you know, average?
I would now classify myself as flexible or switchy, but that's very recent. I for a long time have considered myself incredibly non-dominant.
So far as to perhaps say submissive.
Yes.
So this is not about you having a long history of being a dominant woman and demanding certain things within a kink context, and that's why it's about you.
Absolutely not.
All right, so that clarifies a myth right there, at least in this particular example. So what is it that makes your experience different than what's represented in the research, which may or may not be an average experience? It's just what's represented in the research.
Well, I think one of the major things from what I understand between me and other people is that I do have an orgasm the majority of the time when I have sex, even when it's a first time and an only time and with someone who I haven't talked about it much with. I'm not 100% positive why that is. I do think some of it has to do with maybe my confidence and relaxation. Like if it's someone who I'm not going to see again, then I can not worry about what I look like or feel like, or it's just about the moment.
It also sounds to me like you may not be in your teens or early 20s with a sense of sexual confidence and self.
I am not. And if you were talking to me in my teens and early 20s, my answers to these questions would probably be very different. I'm in my late 30s.
So what's different between now and then? Is it the confidence? Is it other things too?
Well, I'd say a lot of it is my knowledge about my own body and my orgasm, my own knowledge about my orgasm. I did not have my first orgasm until, even counting for doing it with myself, masturbating, I did not have my first orgasm until 6 years after I had sex. And sad fact, the person that taught me how to have an orgasm by masturbating was my cis male boyfriend at the time. But I do think having someone teach me that and getting over my embarrassment of not even having known what it was or what it felt like, that might have helped me a little bit on my way. But I think it's just a lot of knowledge about what makes me come and confidence in the fact that I deserve it.
So I like what you're saying about the confidence that you deserve it and about knowing your body and how you work sexually. Is it just knowing your body, or is it also knowing how to communicate it and letting other people know your body? Because you said that you deserve it. You expect that sex will benefit you in the ways that you want it to, pleasure-wise. So it sounds like you are conveying that to people somehow, or you are weeding out for people who agree with you or something. What do you think?
I think it might be a little of both, because while we say casual hookups, and I think a lot of people might take that to mean I'll hook up with anybody, and that's not true. It's still, you know, when you want to have casual sex, there's a plethora of it out there, like,
sure.
And it's saying no a lot of the times.
If you have no standards whatsoever and you make it known that you're available and you are read as a cis woman, then I wouldn't say you have infinite options, but you probably have so many that you can't count them. So functionally infinite options.
Functionally, I think you do. So if I said yes to every one of those, or put myself out there for everyone that would be willing in reverse, I would probably not have sex as good as I do. I do think it's communication. When I say that earlier when I said that I'm basically going to get mine and I'm going to make sure you know how to give it to me, that I think a lot of times comes across as the dominant, like you said, but
It only comes across as dominant because you're a woman.
That's an excellent point. That's an excellent point. And when I say it that way, but I don't order people around in the bedroom. That's not how I get it. But I'm perfectly willing to communicate when something isn't working, and direct just a tiny bit with whether it's a touch or like a push on a head, a move of a hand, swirl of a hips, or if it's really not working, just flipping over and doing it the other way. Like, and there's, so if you're...
But not so much verbally, is what I'm
Not
hearing.
so much verbally.
No.
Being very responsive when they do it the right way, like, or squeezing into their hair a little bit when they're just things to signal that this is going well. And then sometimes it is verbally like, don't stop, keep going. And then it is, I think, I'm very enthusiastic in the bedroom. So it isn't all about me. It's very much about them, but also very much about me. It's about both of us. So I think that comes across too.
So I can only assume that you are looking for, whether this is in the top of your mind or it's in the background, you're looking for partners who will agree that it's about both of you.
Yes, absolutely.
What do you look for in a cis male partner that helps you determine that it will be about both of you for that other person as well? That they're at least open to that option, even if they didn't approach with that in mind.
It's hard to say a lot of times because I'm probably sure I accidentally filter out people for whom it would be. But just in the manner that someone talks to you, you can kind of tell. It sounds weird, but there's sometimes a swagger where I'm like, not coming across like you're going to be for me. You're a little
beneficial.
Puffed up and a lot of times if anyone approaches me like, how do I say this? If they approach in such a way where they even have a hint of that attitude of, well, you're the woman or something like that. It's normally more subtle than that, but you can kind of get a hint of the role they want to play just in a casual conversation. A lot of times you can hear that.
The stuff you're talking about is very reflected in the research too, just to bring this up to you. So the notion of what makes women more interested in casual sex is feeling like they'll be safe and feeling like it'll be mutually gratifying or pleasurable for them, for the women. So you are talking about that mutual gratification or the pleasure for you. If somebody approached you and you felt you trusted them and they really just wanted to pleasure you and not have reciprocation, like that's how they feel pleasure, to pleasure someone else, would you be all right with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
sure.
Either mutual or one-sided directed towards you. And at least with these casual one-time encounters,
yes.
right? You do it, it's all different balancing act and different kinds of relationships, of course, for everybody. But also folks who do not adhere strongly to gender norms. Men who do not adhere super strongly to masculine gender norms are more likely to be interested in the pleasure of their female partners. And when you talk about like this bravado or this puffed up, I'm thinking about toxic masculinity. I'm thinking about insecure representations and expressions of masculinity, masculine people who are not secure in themselves or perhaps in their masculinity, and lots of other things too. But to be laid back and mutually interested and confident and comfortable is not a masculine gender norm.
It's not. And
it's not a feminine one either.
No.
But yeah.
When I talk about it too, it's also a lot of times more subtle than I think I'm making it sound. It's not like someone walks up to me and they're like, yo, woman, let's go have sex. And
hey, little woman, make a sandwich after you do this. Yeah.
It's not like that, but you can...
I do like a sandwich, though, actually. Yeah, no, we all do.
We all do. That's not a...
It's a different topic.
Man thing either. The other thing is that I'm not afraid to be the aggressor for a casual encounter.
Like, do you mean like an initiator?
Yes, thank you. That's a much better word for it than... I think it's seen as aggressor since I'm a woman.
Yep.
But I'm not afraid to be the initiator, and I do sometimes find that the more masculine stereotype of a man I'm trying to avoid doesn't take to that quite as well.
So they weed themselves out.
I have no problem saying to someone that I'm interested in, look, I'm attracted to you. If you want, I would be up for having sex tonight. I'm perfectly fine if you don't want to have sex tonight. I can, just
let me know. Just let me know the cards are on the table.
I can take it or leave it. If you want it, let me know and let's go. And I find that, especially when I have that type of an approach, that's probably my best responses. The people that can appreciate that, take it or leave it. And I'm also shocked, but not shocked, how many times men are like, wow, you actually just said that. And I'm like, yeah, do you want to? And sometimes their answer is yes, and sometimes their answer is no. And it's okay either way.
It's okay either way, absolutely. So it sounds to me like the way in which you're flirting and propositioning or initiating, if that's the direction it goes in, is similar to the attitude or personality you want to have with the person having sex later, like letting people know what you want and that you desire mutual interest in being there, and that it's not a coy, let's see what happens kind of deal. I think that the let's see what happens is awful. When it works right, it's titillating and romantic and fits our cultural standards of sex and how sex happens to a T, and that can be lovely, but the likelihood of success is awful.
I would agree with that.
And success defined as mutually enjoyable.
Yes.
Not as in getting laid, because a lot of people get laid that way.
Yes.
Miserably so.
I would agree with that. That's not the way I usually go about those types of encounters. And I would say that most of my casual encounters, too, are someone that I meet in person.
Yes. So I'm thinking about problems around thinking that any sex is better than no sex, and that kind of a fear of missing out sort of attitude, and that being too assertive will scare the other person off. But we'll talk about that after I remind you that you're listening to 93.3 FM here in Guelph, which is CFRU Radio. You can listen to us online at cfru.ca. You can email us questions that the lovely student interns at Student Wellness will field and forward some of them on to us. They also help with editing, and you can send those questions to asksc@uofguelph.ca. You can also look us up on YouTube just by YouTubing, because it's not Googling anymore then, I guess, Sexually Charged, and find episodes there. So when people talk about let's just see what happens, I think there's this notion that there's going to be a shared cultural script, a shared set of assumptions. Of course, what I want is what the other person wants. Somehow we magically read each other's minds. Or the fear that if we do communicate what we want, the deal will be off. So let's not say very much. And I liken it to going to a restaurant that you know has really good burgers, but they have a fairly diverse menu. And you go in and the waitstaff says, "What do you want?" You said, "Bring me food. We'll see what happens." And there's a chance that you'll get this delicious burger cooked the way you want it, but it's just one of the many things on the menu. You might get spaghetti. Now, if you're so desperate for food that any food is better than no food, well, okay, you got some food, and I suppose you reduce the risk of no food, but you've made it pretty unlikely to get the food you really hoped for. Now, sex is different in that you don't just, the other person's not obligated to give you what you want because that's what you want most. But if you don't even communicate it, the likelihood of getting it is minimal. You might get some of it, you might still get fries or whatever, but getting that exact thing, if you don't ask for it, you won't get it. If you do ask for it, you might not get it, but you might get something else that both of you like pretty well, or all of you like pretty well.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that completely. And then that plays into your question that you were just asking about, is some sex better than no sex? And I think my thought on that is no. I have a wonderful friend who got me a Hitachi magic wand as a housewarming present once, and a night at home with me and the Hitachi is better than bad sex.
Might even be better than mediocre sex.
I think so.
Unless the sex is fitting other goals around, like intimacy and emotional stuff, but mediocre hookup sex.
If we're talking hookup sex, which is just about pleasure in the moment for me.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be about that, but for me, it's about pleasure in the moment for me and the other person. Then, yes, pleasure for me by myself is better. So when I say to someone that if you want to, that's great. If you don't, that's great too. I really mean it when I say it.
Yes.
Because if they don't, I'll come home and please myself. Or find a different person who does want what I want off the menu that night.
Sarah, there's a stereotype that, especially women who engage in heterosexual casual sex, are really just trying to appease negative body self-image or lack of confidence or to prove to themselves that they're desirable or something like that. I think that is possible for anyone of any gender. In fact, I personally, with no research to back it up, might suspect that that's even more prevalent for cisgender straight male people to be proving their masculinity and things like that. But I don't know. That's just my lopsided guess as a clinician. Do you have any element of that? I mean, this is a difficult and personal question, but do you have any element of that? If that has ever been a goal, did it work, or does it ever work? And what are your thoughts on this in general?
That's a lot. And when I think about that, no, I don't think that I fit that as I am today. I think that younger, insecure, less confident me fits that. And I also think that I actually think that it takes a lot of confidence to do what I do. Mm-hmm. And I look back at my least confident times in my life, and those weren't when I was having casual sex. Those were when I was in long-term monogamous relationships and confidence was down. So I think that you can have, depending on what you're doing, I don't want to say that nobody ever has sex for that, but I also wouldn't say that nobody that there aren't people who don't have long-term monogamous relationships because they lack the confidence to go find something they want more, or different or better. And so I would say that almost any action you take in relationships or sex could be based on confidence. But to say that everyone who does one thing is doing it because of a lack of confidence, no.
Well, I'm thinking about different goals then for having casual sex. So it seems to me that if your goal is to increase your self-esteem or your thoughts about your desirability or something like that, that may or may not be met, but perhaps much like the restaurant thing, you would have to maybe find a way to communicate that to someone in order to increase your likelihood of that being met. So, if a person could say to someone, I'm really interested in going home tonight because I really just want to feel great about myself, and this would make me feel great. These things would make me feel great about myself. Are these things of interest to you in our sex? Then you might have a higher likelihood of success with that, but that would require a certain amount of confidence and self-knowledge. Just as you were saying, I'm interested in having sex with you, and at some point in the conversation or the negotiation or in the moment, you're letting them know what would make the sex good for you. Yeah, we don't have a social script for saying I'd like to feel better about myself this evening. Here's what would work for me. Would you be interested?
We don't. And it would also be, I would be lying if I didn't say that it didn't feel good when I say, do you want to? And the answer is yes.
So it's gratifying.
It is. Yeah. It's gratifying. But it's also not where my self-worth centers, because if they say no, I don't feel like I've lost anything. If they say yes, I feel like I've gained something for the evening.
I'm happy when I initiate or like I proposition people. I'm really happy whether they say yes or no. It's different kinds of happy, but I'm just proud of myself for doing a thing that I was nervous about that, social rules they shouldn't do because of perceived gender and because I'm in the relationship status that I'm in and things like that. So I just get excited for myself that I did a brave thing, and a happy thing. And I'll tell that to people, I'm thinking, if I see this person, I was eyeing this person, if I see them again later, I think I'm going to ask them, and if they say yes, that'll be great. And if they say no, I'm going to be so proud of myself. I'll be proud of myself either way. But yeah.
I would agree with that too. And I don't even mean to put forward that this is never hard for me. There are times when it's easier than others, depending on the person and the social situations, but there's times when it takes a little bit extra extrovertness I have to bring forward in order to have this approach. But yeah, it's not, I don't do it because I'm lacking anything. I think I do it because I've found a lot of myself.
Already. Nice. How do you negotiate safer sex? Actually, when and how do you negotiate safer sex?
Honestly, for me, the word negotiate is a misnomer because it's not a negotiation, it's non-negotiable. Mm-hmm. So basically, once we've decided that this is going to happen, I lay out, I have a real quick list of what I say. I'm like, condoms are a must, not going...
Say it to me the way you would say... So I've just said yes to having sex with you, but pretend I'm a cis dude. What exactly would you say to me? I'd be like, yeah, wow, you just said that. Yes, I would like that very much. What would you say?
Well, I usually have my purse with me. Mm-hmm. And on my purse, and this is something that, strangely, I realize that I've had in every purse that I've had, mm-hmm. There's front pockets.
Yeah.
So I have a safe sex pocket in the front of my purse. So when someone has said that they come back with me, that's basically what I tell them, is that I have safe sex supplies in my purse. We're going to use them, and we'll have a lot of fun doing it. And I've never had anyone that is like, no. I have had people that are like, I would prefer not to, and then I'm like, that makes me sometimes, depending on how pushy they are, if they push back too hard, then that's another point where sometimes the negotiation breaks down. But usually they're receptive to it. But that's what it is. I'm like, I have this pocket. It's got everything that we'll need for safe sex.
And what things do you use barriers for?
I use barriers for anything that's going to be contact with genitals.
So that includes hands and mouths.
That includes, yes, that includes hands and mouths.
So for some people, this might be the first time they've been asked to wear gloves or use a barrier for oral sex if both of those activities are happening. And I can imagine some people saying, like, I don't know how to do that, or I haven't done it that way before. But if they seem, perhaps they can acknowledge that this is not the most familiar territory, but they're still willing, then that's okay.
That's okay. If it's unfamiliar and you're willing, then we'll just have fun while I teach you.
Mm-hmm.
The teaching can be.
And if people are like, well, what if we did this without, or can I at least get a blowjob without it?
No.
And if somebody said, can I at least get a blowjob without a condom, would you just revoke everything? Would you say no blowjobs at all? Would you try again?
No, I wouldn't revoke everything at the first attempt. I would say that that's not an option with me, that I'm happy to do it. And then sometimes I pull out and I'm like, but I have this chocolate flavored condom and I really like the way it tastes, depending on how flirty I am
Mm-hmm.
and how they say it.
Mm-hmm.
How they say it can be really big. It's kind of like with the earlier thing where I'm saying you can get a sense for it. If someone is just kind of like doing a little, I'm going to see, or if someone is doing like, I'm really going to push hard with this statement.
So an ask versus a push.
Yes, an ask versus a push. If it's an ask, I'll be like, no, and then sometimes do something cutesy, and sometimes I'll just be like, no, I'm going to use them. If they push back again, that is usually the end for me, because I'm okay with an ask, but then a second ask is a push.
Right, and you want to feel confident they will follow through on that,
Yes.
and they're not just looking for ways to try and get out of it again.
Yes.
Excellent. So if you were to give advice to women who are interested in casual sex with cis women who are interested in casual sex with cis men, to increase the woman's likelihood, the woman being the person you're talking to, her likelihood of having a mutually beneficial experience, what would be your elevator speech, your just top few points?
My top few points is, don't be afraid to be direct.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean it has to be harsh or rude, but don't be afraid to be direct. Don't be afraid to direct a little, and it can be subtle direction with your body and your hands. It doesn't have to be move your tongue an inch to the left. And also, don't be afraid to walk away. If at any point in time you're feeling like this isn't the right situation, just because you've said, let's have sex, and they've said yes, doesn't mean you now have to have sex.
Yeah. Excellent. All right. So ongoing consent as well. Thank you so much for discussing this, letting me interview you about this, Sarah. And I will look forward to talking to you again soon.